This is Dr. Lisa Marie Bobby, and you're listening to the Love, Happiness, and Success podcast. That song is Sometimes It Rains. The band is Lobo Loco. I thought it was appropriate because it's kind of raining, metaphorically speaking. As I'm recording this podcast, we are very much in the midst of our new reality, and I've been getting a lot of questions coming in about how to deal with coronavirus life, basically, mentally, emotionally. I've been hearing from people that their relationships are struggling due to this new reality, and this is just a really challenging time. And so I did kind of an emergency podcast that I released on Friday, just with some stopgap ideas. But since then, I have had, again, a number of people reach out. We did a fun Instagram live thing earlier today that I had actually intended to record and use that as a podcast. And it did not. There were so many unforeseen things because I personally am dealing with coronavirus life just like everybody else is. My son is out of school, and instead of spending the morning prepping for my Instagram live event the way I usually would have, I was printing out little PDFs and worksheets that my son could sit at the table and do because he's not going to school. So it's impacting me too. And we're going to talk about it today, about how to manage the stress, the new situations that we are all collectively having to figure out how to deal with. We're talking about coronavirus anxiety and how to stop worrying. And also, I have had just a number of really great questions come in that I suspect are very salient for many people. So, in addition to talking about how to just get a handle on the worry mentally, also to talk about maintaining connections during this time, self-care strategies for dealing with coronavirus. Also, I have been hearing from people that this whole experience is really taking a toll on their relationships, which I can absolutely understand. And, hearing from people that they're cooped up and arguing with each other, and what do I do? People are in relationships are managing this stress in different ways, and that is creating conflicts in relationships. So we're going to talk about that. Also, people are worried about more practical matters, like my place of employment is closing down. What am I going to do in terms of taking care of myself, and how do I cope with the anxiety and the stress of all this uncertainty, because we don't know what's happening. We do not know where this is going. And that in itself can be very challenging to deal with. So that's what we're doing today on the Love, Happiness, and Success podcast. So let's just jump right in. The question that I have been getting most frequently, and that I really want to spend some time on, is this one about how do I cope with the anxiety, the worry. I've had so many people say, I am freaking out about coronavirus. And let's face it, this is scary stuff, there's a sort of invisible, thing that could come get us. We have to stay in our houses, right? And on Friday, I released a few tips about how to kind of get away from an anxious mindset and also obey legitimate fear, because fear is our friend in times like this. But as I was thinking about this, even just over this past weekend, I actually want to offer you something more robust, because, really, I have had this question how do I handle the anxiety? How do I stop worrying? How do I stop feeling upset about this? And what is always interesting to me when I get those kinds of questions is the sort of idea that I might say something that would make the feeling go away. It's like when somebody drops a really complicated relationship situation and be like, okay, so tell me what to do. And there, first of all, are absolutely things that help with this. And I'm going to be sharing those with you. And there is not one thing, there is not one piece of advice. Learning how to manage anxiety involves developing and then reliably utilizing a specific skill set that involves changing the way that you think. It involves developing metacognition skills, like being aware of what you're thinking. It also involves behavioral strategies. And this is not okay, do this and it'll be better. What this is opening a door to is an opportunity to learn how to manage anxiety, which is a process. And in thinking about what I could do to help you with this, I mean, should everybody come for therapy for anxiety management? Yes. And as a stopgap measure, I have actually decided to make the Happy Mind unit of my online happiness class free for you, for my podcast listeners, because that is what would actually be helpful to you. And so it is my very, very, very small way of kind of contributing to the public good right now, I think, of just making this available at no cost to my listeners. And I will also be talking through some of these strategies, but really, so what the happiness class is like, 14 45-minute long sessions where I'm explaining this stuff to you. The Happy Mind unit is real specifically focused on cognitive strategies to learn about different thinking styles and how to develop awareness about what you're thinking, and then very, very practical strategies to help you shift into more helpful ways of thinking and move away from less helpful ways of thinking that will be emotionally upsetting to you. Because they are to everybody. And there's also a component of mindfulness skills training in there as well, and some specific homework and activities designed to help specifically with anxiety. So it is 5 different actual lessons in that unit, and they are yours for free, okay? Because if you would like them, please text Happy Mind, all one word, Happy Mind, to the number 55444. And then you can put in your email address and you'll get the link to take the class and a special coupon code. It's just for you. Okay. So there's that. Because, again, developing anxiety management skills is not something that you can just flip a switch and do. It is learning how to do it through significant instruction, but then also you have to practice it. Even if you watch all of the happiness classes and just kind of listen to me talk, it doesn't matter. It won't change anything for you. You have to do the work. So print out the little worksheets and sit down and write it out and do your homework. That is what will actually change the experience for you, is taking action and doing things differently. But first you have to learn how to do it differently. So, I mean, that's a lot of what therapy is, talking about anxiety does not make anxiety better. I think that there's some misconceptions that when people come in for therapy, they just like sit and talk about all this stuff and then, sort of magically feel better. And hey, there's a time and a place for venting, right? But what actually happens and what is the helpful part of evidence-based therapy is to, sit with somebody who can say, okay, I see this impact right here of the way that you're thinking is what is creating all these scary things for you. So let's talk about something that you can do differently, and teaching you skills, but then also being that accountability partner where you show up the next week and somebody's like, okay, let me see your homework, pull out your worksheets, let's talk about specifically what you did, because that is what changes things. It is the effort that you put into doing things differently that will change the way that you feel day to day. I just wanted you to know that, because the questions that I'm getting, it makes me feel like, there's this idea that I could just say, okay, do this. And it's almost like this passive thing. I can certainly teach you things, but then you have to do them. And now you have resources to learn and do it. Text Happy Mind to 55444 to get access to that. All right. That's one resource that I wanted to share with you. That is not where we're stopping. The other questions that I've been getting over and over and over again from people are related to feeling anxiety about worrying that they are getting sick, taking their temperature 3 times a day, feeling very worried that other people in their lives are getting sick, and really just that sense of helplessness around it. And so if/when you access the happiness class, you'll want to pay really special attention to the mindfulness class if that has been happening, because there are very specific tools and ways of shifting your thinking that can help with that kind of intrusive thinking and sort of checking to move into a more reality-based space. It is far beyond the scope of this podcast for me to attempt to teach this to you in this kind of format. But again, I do hope that you take advantage of the classes and the homework that I have there in order to learn how to do this. Another thing that has been coming up are things related to self-care. One of the things that I asked people on Instagram to share lately were some self-care strategies that they have been using in order to take care of themselves during this time. And it's been interesting because, people have been sharing that it's been very hard kind of being at home and also having their regular routines disrupted, particularly self-care routines. They can't go to their yoga class anymore. They can't go to their gym, but also some really creative ideas about things that have been helpful to people. And so I'm going to share some of them with you. I've been hearing from a lot of people that doing exercisey kinds of things at home is super helpful. So, there are a number of subscription-based video exercise things that you can sign up for and jump around in your living room. Those are a great strategy. Also, doing yoga at home. I have heard from a couple of people that has been helpful. There are a number of apps that can walk you through like breathing exercises and sort of little mini mindfulness meditations. Those have been helpful to people. I've also been hearing that things like home improvement projects and cleaning, like while they don't really sound like the self-care strategies that we think of like going to the spa, doing things in your house that are productive and goal-oriented, even like baking something, can give you not just something to do, but a sense of purpose and also a sense of like healthy distraction from feeling worried about what is going on. So I just wanted to share those resources with you. I know that also for myself personally, kind of coming back into what can I control right now has been mentally, I think, helpful for me. So, a lot of cleaning and spraying things off with alcohol and mopping my floors in bleach solution. I mean, it passes the time, but it also, I think, adds this sense of, hey, I'm doing what I can, right? And so to be looking around your life for things that you can do, variations of your usual self-care activities. Like if you go to the gym, maybe instead of doing that, you could go for a long walk or a hike in nature, which is still safe as far as I know. So don't neglect self-care. Another thing that I am hearing about is that people are feeling more like disconnected and lonely during the whole coronavirus experience because of the quarantine, and those recommendations to stay at home. People are feeling cut off from their usual support system, that people that they usually talk to or hang out with, even just casually, like they don't get to do that. And that I think it's exacerbating anxiety. I talked a little bit about this on Friday, but just want to say it again. Many of us, and myself included, I do the same, are texting back and forth with people all the time. And I think that this is helpful in the sense that we feel somewhat connected when we get to message people back and forth. But it is also just really important to know that the part of your brain that kind of registers human connection does not get stimulated through messaging or through social media. And so you could be texting back and forth with people all day long, but the part of your brain that, again, registers social contact wants voices, it wants emotion, it wants to see and hear and have a real-time experience. And so it's extremely important, and I know that especially for some of you younger people, it feels a little bit uncomfortable, but to be picking up the phone and like making a phone call or randomly FaceTiming someone that you're thinking about, instead of relying on texts, because it will help you feel much more filled up, like emotionally, if you have that face-to-face connection. And it does not have to be a big deal. It could be a 5 or 10 minute thing, like you're cooking dinner, you're eating lunch, whatever. Yeah, open up your iPad on the kitchen counter and just FaceTime someone and talk to them like they were standing in your kitchen. That is the kind of experience that will be meaningful on a deeper level than just a digital social experience. And just knowing that will help you feel calmer and more connected, and just like that cup is filled up. So it might be an unusual recommendation, but we are still biologically based creatures, and I want to share with you what works. So there is a strategy. Also related to relationships, I have been getting a few questions from people about something that I think is extremely understandable, and we should probably devote a whole podcast to this at some point. But feeling like this whole coronavirus experience is taking a real toll on their relationships with our partners, which makes perfect sense, right? I think in every healthy relationship, we have a balance of togetherness versus separateness. Like during the day, I go do my stuff, you go do your stuff. And now we are living in this reality where everybody kind of has to stay at home together. And there can be an uptick in friction and conflict in relationships because of this. And I will tell you why. This happens for a few different reasons. First of all, I think it's worth acknowledging that this is a stressful time for everyone, and people cope with stress differently. One person may want to talk about their feelings. Another person might have a very action-oriented approach to managing stress. Other people may withdraw and I don't want to talk about this. I don't want to think about it. And that is how they cope. And I think it's very, very important to find balance in a relationship between getting our needs met by our partner in the way that we need them to be met, and also making space and practicing acceptance, tolerance, appreciation for them also needing to do what they need to do right now in order to get through this, because it might be very different than your way. And we are all, self included, vulnerable to judging our partners for handling things differently than how we do it, right? So the classic example, and what we're already seeing people show up in couples counseling and relationship coaching for recently, is related to this in a few different ways. So first of all, I think there are inadvertently attachment ruptures happening in relationships, in houses, all over towns and areas as we speak. And what I mean by that is that when people are stressed out, when they're in need of comfort and support, and they turn to their partner for that comfort and support, say, you are my number one person, you are my harbor in the storm of this scary world, and I'm reaching out to you. If they feel rejected or invalidated or made stupid in that moment, or have a negative experience where I just reached out to you in a very vulnerable way and now I feel like that was a bad idea, it is damaging to the relationship. In contrast, when someone reaches out emotionally in that moment of need and feels like they're able to connect with their partner and get their emotional needs met in that moment, get the understanding or the comfort or even just the hug or acknowledgement, like, yeah, this is scary and I love you. Those moments strengthen a relationship. And so what you see happen is that people begin fighting with each other, sometimes very bitterly, because they're not getting what they need from their partner in that moment. And so they are fighting for that connection. And sometimes it sounds like fights over trivial things. It's, don't talk to me that way, or you said you would do this and you didn't. But at the bottom of that, underneath of it, is, are you there for me emotionally during this really, really hard time? Can I count on you? And this can go a lot of different ways. When people are stressed, they might need more comfort and support. If you are in a partnership with someone whose way of coping is to withdraw and kind of become internal and kind of shut things down for a little while, that is also a legitimate way of coping with stress, but those are going to be in conflict. And what your partner might be needing from you right now is to kind of be left alone as they're digesting this and processing it and figuring out how they want to deal with it. And so just to have empathy and compassion for what we're all dealing with internally, Because even if someone seems like they're withdrawn or they're just playing video games and not talking about anything, don't make the mistake of assuming that they're not also very fragile right now emotionally. And what also tends to happen is that when people get stressed out and anxious, they tend to become more of whatever they already are, so our personality traits, our ways of doing things don't change necessarily, but they can kind of become more intensified. And so it's also during times of stress that couples have the opportunity to see or feel or understand the growth areas of their relationship a little bit more clearly, let's say, than when we're just kind of bopping around doing our stuff, day to day, like we always do. We fall into routines, and those routines can be very distracting in and of themselves. And so, like, for example, if you have two people in a family living together and they may have differences around the way they do things, when one person is like, I would like this done this way, I'm having a lot of anxiety about coronavirus, and I think it's a good idea to mop my floor once a day in bleach solution, not naming any names, but that's basically what I did this past weekend. My husband, thankfully, is like, you do you. And there can be an enormous amount of conflict in couples where there is not a strong sense of either teamwork or acceptance / respect around the way that we would both like to handle this. So for example, already hearing about bitter arguments where one person had extremely strong feelings about the fact that we should not let the children go to the playground right now because there are viruses all over the play structures. And the other person in the relationship is like, I will wipe off their hands after they go down the slide. And are they just going to sit in the house the whole time? And these sound like small things. But when people are being fueled by anxiety and fear and stress, they can mushroom into not just big things, but very fierce and sometimes hurtful points of conflict between a couple. So if, every couple has growing areas, and if one of the growing areas of your relationship is, how do we work together as a team? What are our systems? What are we in agreement around? Where do we see things differently? And what is our tolerance for, me doing things my way, you doing things your way? All couples need to negotiate those areas very explicitly, ideally through premarital counseling, which is why we emphasize that so strongly. But, in this coronavirus reality, you may be experiencing like, this is our growth area. And so that teamwork one is a big one, but also that emotional safety piece that I was just talking about is huge. What are we each needing from each other right now as we're both coping with this stress and uncertainty? And how do we give that to each other? And have respect for our differences and our needs so that we can stay emotionally connected and support each other during this challenging time. And again, I'm getting questions like that around, so I'm fighting with my spouse, what do I do? Like there's some easy fix, and just hear this, that there's nothing I am going to, or any marriage counselor is going to say, like, okay, do this and it'll all stop. All this is an invitation to begin a growth process where you're sitting down and beginning to have conversations where you are listening with the intention of understanding, how do you feel? What do you need? How do you experience me? Who are you? Like on a deeper level, these are the kinds of conversations that we have in couples counseling. What a couples counselor does is like hold the door open for two people to have these essential conversations where they understand each other more deeply and then learn and practice new ways of solving problems together, communicating with each other, showing each other love in the ways that they need to experience love, and also practicing gratitude and acceptance. And these are skills that are learned and then intentionally practiced every single day. There is not a answer to this problem. It is, where do I need to grow? So I just want you to know that, because I would hate for you to think that there is some like magic wand type solution here. It's just showing you, it's shining a light on where the work is. And the good news is that your relationship will be stronger and more secure and more able to withstand all the challenges of life. You know, right now it's coronavirus and we're all figuring out how to cope with this. This is not the last time you will experience stress in your life. And so figuring out how to do this, how to be, the things to practice intentionally day to day in order to keep connected and stay in a good place with each other emotionally, will serve you well in years to come once this particular crisis has passed. I will also tell you that one specific thing that you could do that might come in real handy right now is to intentionally make space in your relationship, particularly if you've noticed that you are getting into a cycle where you're snapping at each other and conflict is feeling really real. One of the worst things that you can do in this moment ever, really, but is kind of not let it go, have to talk it all the way through and right now, and not let people kind of escape from conflictual conversations. Really take a break, take some time, take a shower, go walk around, let it go overnight. It is good to sleep on things, because when we're in a heightened state of stress and anxiety, we can get very, very bulldogish, particularly with our partners. And to allow spaciousness into your interactions, even if you're in the same physical space day in, day out right now, can really help you manage conflict and not let it be destructive to your relationship. Okay, so one more thing I think we really need to talk about. I have been speaking with a number of people lately and hearing from listeners that people are really struggling with just uncertainty right now and just how to cope with that. Because many people, there's an enormous amount of comfort in just kind of knowing what's happening tomorrow and being able to make plans for the future. And our reality currently is that many people are extremely worried about their financial future, with businesses pausing, shutting down. Nobody knows where this is going. I've even had people say, I feel like coronavirus has destroyed my life. I cannot deal with the uncertainty of not knowing what is happening day to day, moment to moment, how long this is going to last, what will become of me, what's on the other side of this, is this just my new normal? And so the thought, the set of ideas I would like to leave you with, and again, this is not, I'm going to drop this advice and everything will be different, but ideas to begin exploring and learning more about and practicing are related to two things. The Buddhists teach this idea that the only thing we can ever count on is change and uncertainty, and to get real comfortable with that and not get attached to things being a certain way, because that in itself brings an enormous amount of stress and pain and anxiety, because life doesn't work that way. And related to this idea is the idea of radical acceptance. And we talk about this a lot, particularly DBT is like a form of therapy that can be incredibly useful for managing emotions. But the central idea is that to develop the skill of acceptance of what is in an intentional way without having to like it. You can say, this is what's happening, and I do not love this. It is not my first choice, and this is what is happening, and I need to deal with this and make a plan for how I'm going to handle this reality, as opposed to the alternative choice, which is not accepting reality and instead being extremely upset and distressed about the fact that reality is the way that it is. So there's a very old story about two people walking along, minding their own business, and somebody runs up out of the blue and shoves them both into this rushing river that they're walking next to. And now they're both in this river. It is a whitewater river. It is cold. It is fast. And the first person is like, what just happened? That guy pushed us into the river. That is not okay. I am so mad about this. And was like, how dare he? How dare he? And just flashing around and yelling and being so upset and spending all of this energy and drowned in the river because of their indignation and their protest. This is not okay. That they had very specific, this is what people do. This is how we should behave. And this person violated that, and therefore I am going to freak out. That's option one. The second person also experienced being pushed in the river through no fault of their own. And they certainly had this moment where they were like, this is not okay. And then shifted into a place of radical acceptance where they said, and I'm in a river right now, and it's cold and it's fast, and I need to deal with this situation calmly or I'm not going to make it. They shifted into that headspace, looked around. They're going down the river. They kind of saw a branch hanging out over the water, did a little dog paddle over there because they're taking action based in reality, and caught that branch, pulled themselves out, and lived to fight another day. And the moral of this story is that we can often not control things that happened. We cannot control our circumstances, that in many ways reality will have its way with us, right? But what we can do is choose how we're going to react. And we can spend a lot of mental and emotional energy being highly upset that things are the way they are. Or we can shift into a place of radical acceptance, which is one of dealing with reality on its own terms as it is, and adjusting ourselves accordingly so that we are in the best position possible to manage it competently. And that is really the definition of resilience, not that we have to be 100% all the time, and not that you aren't allowed to have feelings, but this resilience comes from a sense of competence and efficacy that, this is happening and I will find my way through. And I don't need to know what exactly that's going to look like, because that is unknowable right now. And I do know that I will continue putting one foot in front of the other. I will do the next best thing when opportunities or ideas present themselves. I will, take that turn. I mean, another metaphor is the idea of getting in your car for a road trip, a long road trip, right? I'm in Colorado and I'm going to drive to California, and I don't know exactly what I'm going to encounter every mile. I can only see the horizon in front of me. Or in some patches, I can only maybe see a couple hundred yards ahead of my car. At night, you can only see what's in front of you with the headlights. And you don't have to know exactly what is going to happen. You just have to trust yourself and your own competence to make good decisions every step of the way. And when you have new information, you will act accordingly. And so I think that those are kind of big ideas, but they're attached to a mindfulness practice and an intention of staying in the present moment, operating in reality, staying calm. And I think that remembering all of those things can be very helpful to us during this time. So there are other ideas that I could share, but I think that this is probably enough for one episode. And, this situation is not going away anytime soon. And so we will have plenty more opportunities to talk about things related to this experience as it continues to unfold. But most of all, I just want to leave you with the idea that all challenges, large or small, they're invitations for us to grow, right? And our growth moments are born in times of stress. Nobody grows when things are easy and when they're just kind of chugging along. It's whenever we get pushed into a situation that is kind of beyond our ability to know what to do with that. And that is when we're like, okay, how do I handle this? What do I need to modify or learn or improve on in order to get better results given this new challenging circumstance? And that can be individual growth. I'm sharing some of those tips with you through the happiness class. Again, if you want to participate in that, happy mind to 5. No, wait, hold on. Let me double check. I don't want to tell you the wrong thing. Happy mind to 55444 to access the Happy Mind unit for free. Also, know that there's always support available for you. This might be the time to read a relationship book together with your partner, to do some online relationship coaching, to talk about how you can understand and support each other during this challenging time, and also to stay connected to other people as much as you can, reaching out to your support system. And I'll also share with you guys that one idea I am exploring. I have not actualized it yet, but I'm considering seeing about hosting an online support group through Growing Self that would be open to the public, but just kind of like a meeting forum for people to come together and talk about their experiences and support each other in an emotionally safe way during this time, because I think we all need that right now. So those are ideas, resources for you. I hope you take advantage of them, and I will be back in touch next week with more love, happiness, success, and survival guide information. So you all take good care, and we'll talk again soon.